morning and welcome. This is a public hearing for the Northern Kentucky Workforce Investment Board regarding our regional and local comprehensive plans. I see that those of you who have joined have been muted and your video is off, which is totally fine. I will let you know that this meeting is being recorded. Also, I will mention that we are having a slight technical problem. And so if you could indicate in the chat if you can hear me, I would really appreciate it because unfortunately, I'm not sure that I can hear you. We are going to pause just for a couple minutes and let additional individuals join. Wonderful, Lisa. Thank you so much. If you are just joining, this is the Northern Kentucky Workforce Investment Board's public hearing for our local and regional plan. I am Tara Johnson-Nome, and I'm the director of the WIB. And I'm laughing, I'm sorry, I'm a little flustered because unfortunately, even though my audio is working fine in every other way, it seems as though I cannot hear anyone who's talking in the Zoom, which is unfortunate. So, Michelle, I see that you are muted and that is fine. It sounds like everyone else can hear me, even though I can't hear you guys. The purpose of this is really to give anyone who had any concerns an opportunity to better understand our local and regional plan. And so this is not at all the first time that this opportunity has been provided. I'm just going to go ahead, and then if someone does have a question, you can just indicate that in the chat and then I will address it. So we'll move on. I am going to share my screen. Oops, actually, hold on. We got one more person in here. Okay, so welcome. We're just getting started, and I am going to try to share my screen here. Oh, share sound. I wonder if maybe that might help.
Does that help?
Who's joining us? My name is Tara Johnson-Nome, and this is a public hearing regarding our local and regional plan. I am so sorry that we're having a little bit of a technical issue. So if you have any questions, please indicate those in the chat. And actually, I am going to see if I have maybe the ability, Katie Jo, to make you a co-host so that, or maybe you'll be able to see the chat. So if you can just record those, that would be great. So, okay. So as previously mentioned, this is definitely not the first time that we've had this conversation. I'm just going to do a quick kind of overview of what is the WIB. I think everybody on this so far knows about it, but we will be sharing this via Facebook. So we want to give anyone who will be watching the video later a chance to understand as well. So the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act of 2015 is the federal workforce act or law that it's the most recent in a series of workforce laws over the decades to provide federal funding for local workforce needs. So the funding goes to a group of local counties. There are 10 regions in Kentucky, and in our case, these 8 counties shown on your map, Boone, Kenton, Campbell, Carroll, Gallatin, Owen, Grant, and Pendleton, are all the counties in our service area. So the way it works is that the funding directly is the responsibility of those county judges, the judge's executive, and they select a fiscal agent. In the case of us, they have selected the Northern Kentucky Area Development District. So technically we're all staff of the Area Development District. And then it is our responsibility to help them constitute a workforce investment board. And you can see here, there's the board. We report to, as staff, we report to the board. We also have other non-workforce investment board programming as well. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but we have a subcontractor Brighton Center that does both the KCC, the Career Center's operations, and direct services. So what is this about a plan? WIOA requires us to do a local and regional comprehensive plan every few years. I believe it's every 4. And it is designed by the Education and Workforce Development Cabinet. So Kentucky designs the plan. It's very comprehensive. It's extremely tactical, which means it's quite long, and it requires coordination with other areas. So the local part means our 8 counties. The regional part, and we'll get to this in a second, is that we're actually coordinating with other local areas in order to create the regional component of the plan. It is due in Frankfurt next week, at the end of next week. And so we want to make sure we've had the open comment period open for a number of weeks now, but we wanted to make sure people had time to have an interaction if they had a question or wanted to voice a comment. We're also creating at this time a strategic plan. It's designed directly by the Workforce Investment Board. They've created a strategic planning committee to oversee the operations and how the strategic plan will come together. It's very high level strategy. It's focused on our 8 counties. And the target completion for the strategic plan is May of 2021. So sometimes the words strategic plan or local plan are used interchangeably, but really they're quite different. This event is focused on the local and regional comprehensive plan. We're also pleased to be able to leverage this work in other ways. We recently had a requirement to weigh in on the Kentucky Department of Education's career and technical education credentials list. And we incorporated a lot of that work into this plan as well. We're also very committed to the work of Grow NKY and to be supportive of the ecosystem overall. And so, Grow is in an effort right now to look at different metrics. And so we're hopeful that this plan will be helpful in that work as well. And as I already said, it's input for simultaneous board strategic planning. So before we go forward, I'm just trying to see if it's possible. Okay, I can see the chat. Perfect. There are 5 chapters plus an additional elements section that make up this plan. And the way that it works is, so there's regional plan requirements that align to the states or the NKWIB's plan that was ratified in 2020. And those have to align to our local plan as well. And we are incorporating local planning themes into the regional perspective with other areas. So the other areas are Bluegrass, which is Lexington area. Kentuckiana Works, which would incorporate Louisville, is supposed to be part of this planning process, but they have elected to plan with their counterparts across the river in Indiana. And so therefore they were not involved in our regional plan. And then Lincoln Trail, which would incorporate Bardstown and its surrounding areas. The local and regional questions in the document are blended in each chapter. So it gets a little confusing. It sounds like we're talking about 2 things, but even though there are local questions and there are regional questions, they are blended together. So each each chapter has a combination of both. We divided up the work amongst the committees of the WIB, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, but just can kind of give you a flavor of the different chapters. And then the additional elements were divided up based on the topic. And here is the timeline that was used. We started in December with a survey emailed to WIB members. The planning committee would meet in between other meetings of the various WIB committees to keep the work going. And then, as you can see now, we're in our public comment period, which I think that date is slightly off. The last date of the comment period is actually April 23rd at the close of business for anyone who would be watching this. And we continue to have regular standing meetings of the WIB. Next week, we will have had the opportunity to incorporate any of the comments from today or any of the other comments received during the open comment period. And then the full board will vote next Thursday, which is April 29th. And then our local elected officials, so the 8 county judges, will vote to approve this plan, we hope, on Friday, April 30th. We will continue forward into May with finalizing the board's strategic plan and look forward to sharing that with the community as well. So chapter 1, economic and workforce analysis. The role of the board is outlined at the beginning of each one of these chapters, just to kind of, this is a presentation that's been used in a number of ways. This is really the stage setting chapter where we're really looking at what are we talking about in terms of our area. And again, just as a reminder, there are local aspects, so the 8 counties, and then regional, which is kind of a mega region of the north central portion of Kentucky included in this chapter. So this is a regional economic analysis that was done actually by our colleagues in the Bluegrass region on behalf of our 34 county central Kentucky region. And really, I don't think it's any surprise to see, you know, this is the economic engine of Kentucky. It stretches all the way from Boone County in the north to Lincoln County in the south, Breckinridge County in the west to Powell County in the east. This region has 28.3% of Kentucky's counties and 35.9% of its labor force. So 717,721 jobs in total, based on the labor market information that was used in 2021 when this was being created. So the jobs are, you know, more concentrated than the workers are. So we know that jobs are centered in certain job centers. Of course, concentrated is what I meant. Jobs are concentrated in certain job centers. Some of these parts of our region are more rural, where others are more urban. But the overwhelming majority of you know, this region is really showing a much more favorable labor force participation rate than elsewhere in the Commonwealth. And so there's some other good news as well. Most of the population over age 25 in the region has a high school diploma or higher, 90%. However, only 29.8% have a bachelor's degree, or higher. And there are wide disparities between counties, you know, with 9.9% of the population in Estill County having a bachelor's degree compared to 43.6% in Fayette County. We also see disparities related to race and ethnicity. In terms of poverty, we also see some areas with very high disability rates. So while in many ways this is a very strong region, there continue to be barriers and challenges. So the point of this plan is to really address how might we handle some of those challenges. And, you know, based on the amount of time that we have today, there's no possible way that we could cover every single aspect of this plan. It is with attachments 213 pages long, but we did want to just provide some highlights that are covered about our 8 county area in this plan. And so in terms of addressing challenges, a couple of the topics that we brought to the attention and highlights here are our partnership with EC Learn to provide workforce services to childcare providers and dislocated employees. During the pandemic, there was so much attention brought to the challenge of childcare, and continuing to understand kindergarten readiness is a key aspect as well. But we know that individuals who cannot find childcare are going to be much more impacted by their, you know, by that ability to find a job that meets their needs. And so we did work with EC Learn during the pandemic to try to help them work with employees from childcare centers that had closed, Through a National Dislocated Worker Grant, we did provide access to training for the Child Development Certification, or CDA, for dislocated childcare employees. And we'll continue to try to work with EC Learn on other ways to support that sector as well. We are also one of several partners involved in the Lift Up project. It's a multi-year, I think 5-year grant received by St. Elizabeth Healthcare that includes the WIB as well as the Kentucky Career Center, Life Learning Center, and I'm thinking some others, but it's really an opportunity to get focused attention for individuals coming out of substance use disorder recovery back into the workforce. So again, it's just 2 examples of how we're working to address some of the disparity that we are seeing from that economic analysis. We also did a deep dive in the plan about credentials. As I mentioned, we are responsible for, the WIB is responsible for providing input about KDE's career and technical education certification list. And so by industry sector, we dove into the highest number of demands. This is all using Burning Glass data. Burning Glass is a labor market insight company, so we have a subscription to that. So the dots are FY, so fiscal year 21, and the bars are last fiscal year. And so we always see driver's license at the top in terms of credentials, but then if you dive down, you'll see forklift, driver, CDL, project management, you get the idea. So if you look at the plan itself, you can go deeply into all the various certifications that we see at the top of job postings here in Northern Kentucky. And we have those in the plan by industry area, as I mentioned. And we'll get into kind of how we do the industry area stuff in a second. And then again, happily being able to leverage this work in many ways. Not only is it part of the economic analysis in the local and regional plan, but we also were able to provide insights to KDE and the NKWIB, the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board, which is the statewide board. As part of that work, we had an intense outreach to employers. One of our committees created an ad hoc committee just to focus on this for about 3 months. We reviewed the existing list. We used the Burning Glass data to get initial information. And then we divided up by the 5 sectors and did some outreach ultimately to about 100 employers and a number of collaboratives to receive information about what they thought was the most important in terms of credentials moving forward. We were able to capture those skills needs in this comprehensive plan, which we'll be able to use in the future. And we were also able to submit recommendations to the Kentucky Department of Education. I will also add that this process really strengthened our relationships with our local high schools and our local post-secondary partners. And I think it's going to make us a lot stronger. I mean, we're all about partnerships. So it was really great to have that experience. And something that is incorporated in the plan that you can read is our commitment to making this a year-round conversation. The next step that's also outlined in the plan is reviewing our eligible training provider list for basically post-secondary programs to identify if there's any local gaps in available training as well. So that's on the horizon for next year. Next year, which starts in July, just to be clear, our fiscal year is July to June. Okay, so that's just the first chapter, which is all about the economic analysis. And again, just as a reminder to those either watching remotely or present with us today in Zoom, that this is really meant to be, it's a public hearing. So it's not exactly designed like we would normally prefer to design a meeting where we would have a lot of interaction with our audience. But we didn't just want to, open up a Zoom and have just nothing to say. So we're going over the whole plan. If you do have a comment that you would like to share, or if you have a question, please place it in the chat. We do have a technical issue right now where I cannot hear anyone who is with us in the Zoom. So I apologize for that. But if you have a question, please put it in the chat. It'll be great because we'll be able to capture your question and I'll actually be able to know what it is. So moving on, because again, we do only have an hour and we have 5, really almost 6 chapters to cover. I'm going to go on to chapter 2, which is the strategic vision and goals. This is really where we get into what do we see for the coming future. The strategic planning committee has spent a lot of time going over and really updating our vision, our mission statement, our value statement, and I am really proud of the work that they have done. And so the new vision statement that we're proposing, that it's not approved yet. This is just a reminder, these are all proposed changes that we hope for the board to vote on next week. But the vision statement that has been proposed is that every Northern Kentucky community thrives as a result of sustained economic prosperity. And then, what is the role in that vision for the Northern Kentucky Workforce Investment Board? And that would be that we drive innovative policy and direct funding for workforce investment through strong community partnerships to promote engaged employers, skilled job seekers, and collective impact. Our values are only slightly changed from what was previously written, and those are available on our website in case you want to compare. We're going to stick with customer focus. There is a slight update in this one that we respond to employer and individual needs with exceptional and culturally competent customer service. So culturally competent is a new phrase that we just want to bring everyone's attention to. Self-sufficiency remains what it was previously. Innovation, continuous improvement, equity, this is new. We are a force for equity, inclusion, and life-changing results for all of our clients. So that's a revised new value. And collaboration, we value the strengths of our community partners and collaborate to ensure effective and efficient service delivery. Also new is our diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. And even though it's a little bit long, I am going to read the entire thing. The Northern Kentucky Workforce Investment Board embraces the need for diversity, equity, and inclusion to be a component of everything we do. We strive to create a network that meets business needs, while it also supports the dignity of our clients. We respond to regional employment needs through the perspectives of local employers' demand for talent and economic empowerment. We are a force for equity, inclusion, and life-changing results for all of our clients. These priorities are supported through the values below, which this will come above the value statement that we just read, and outlined in our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. I'll just take a moment to add that in the board strategic plan, there is a component calling for a new diversity, equity, and inclusion committee that will write a new action plan for DEI. Okay, so chapter 3. Chapters 3 and 4 are about partnership, about strategy, and about program design and evaluation. So I grouped them together to think about them together, and then we'll divide them out to review. This is all about reviewing the strategies for meeting the needs of job seekers. The plan calls for us to have a focus on rural areas, virtual services, digital equity. It calls for a lot of, it's very prescriptive. So it has questions about operations, direct services, individuals with barriers and disabilities, rapid response and training. It also calls for a review of our strategies for meeting the needs of employers, for partner engagement, and for engagement with our state partners. So chapter 3 is about alignment and partnerships. This is where we're going to review what exactly is our structure. So the county judges technically are the stewards of these WIOA funds. The funds leave Washington, they take a stop in Frankfurt. Technically, they are the responsibility of the judges, but they have the responsibility of choosing a fiscal agent. So they have chosen the area development district, and the this ad staff should be like slightly above this WIB box. But we also report to the WIB, so it's a little bit confusing there. But the ad staff is supporting both the judges and the WIB to fulfill the requirements of the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. The WIB, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on its structure in just a moment. But state statute requires that we contract out for WIOA direct services, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And federal law requires that we contract out for the operator of the Kentucky Career Center. Oops, sorry about that. So here's the structure of the Northern Kentucky Workforce Investment Board. We have 4 standing committees: business services, program and youth, membership and board operations, and the executive committee. And then the program and youth committee has a subcommittee called the youth response team. Unlike some other boards, the executive committee does never vote on behalf of the full board. So we have to have a quorum of all members, as well as a quorum of all of our business members. The board has to be made up of at least 51% of business representatives, and a quorum of that group is required for a vote of the full board. Okay, so now we get into the operator. The operator role is subcontracted per federal WIOA law. They oversee all the operations of the physical locations. They assure the collaboration between partners, and they represent the Career Center. Even though the Career Center is not technically an entity, the operator, who is currently Corey Eimer, he's been in that role for several years, does a great job. He represents the Career Center in local communities as needed on behalf of the WIB. And then so here's our locations. We have 5 locations that we kind of consider our locations, and then we have some access points in the library. So Covington is the comprehensive center. That is where the majority, where we have the most of our partners. So 13 total partners have MOUs to participate in the Career Center, and the most of them are on site in Covington. Florence and Williamstown are both, Florence is an affiliate level center with 3 different partners present on site. Williamstown is in the process of becoming an affiliate center and also will have 3 partners on site. Carrollton has just WIOA staff. CVG Airport has just WIOA staff. And then Kenton, Owen, and Pendleton County Public Libraries all have just library staff who have all been trained in WIOA and the other programs and are able to direct job seekers and employers, if they come in, with all of the opportunities that are available through the Career Center network. Here's all of our MOU level partners. So on the website, you can find nkcareercenter.org website under About. You can find links to every one of these partners and find out more about them. And then we also have community partnerships. So these other partners, we have MOU, memorandum of understanding arrangements with them, where we have certain expectations in our operations, but we also have very strong partnerships out in the community. So as I mentioned before, with Grow NKY, with local economic development offices like Triad or Grant County Chamber Economic Development, as well as the I-71 Corridor Alliances economic development work, and Pendleton County's Community Development Office. So we work with all of those local communities on their economic development, work with local chambers. We work with KCTCS, so Gateway Community and Technical College, as well as JCTC, Education Council, the co-op, and many more. It's really the whole idea of this makeup of the Career Center is to bring all of the workforce solutions and resources into one stop so that either employers or job seekers are able to be in one place and really understand everything that's available to them. And we work very hard to continue to make that as possible as we can. We also, through WIOA, are provided with funds to directly support individuals and employers. And so you almost think of the WIOA Direct Services as one of the partners in the Career Center. That is per state law provided by a subcontractor, and that subcontractor is Brighton Center. We go through a procurement process in order to determine that. And we did so in 2020. Let's see, we offer intensive workforce services to employers and individuals. Those individuals could be low-income adults, dislocated workers, or that's kind of a fancy word for people who have been laid off, and youth ages 16 to 24. The report goes into great depth. The local and regional plan goes into great depth about the how these programs work. So if you would like to learn more, that is outlined in the plan. There's several pages about the youth program in particular. We also have direct services for employers, talent recruitment, hiring events. We have on staff through Brighton Center business services representatives. And then we have a partnership called the Business Services Team, which meets every other week in order to make sure that they are aligned on how they're serving our employers. So that is the end of chapter 3. I'm just going to check really quickly and see if there's anything in the chat here on Zoom, and there is not. So I'm going to move on to chapter 4. It's all about program design and evaluation. And again, you can find the full plan on our website, nkcareercenter.org. It's one of the sliders at the top of the page. And so that's where you can, if you're watching this after the fact, you can find the place to put in your public comments there on the website. And okay, so let's see. This is all about the WIB's program design. And again, these things are all outlined in the local and regional plan, but it does ask about if we have sector strategies, which we very much do. Our in-demand or targeted industries are advanced manufacturing, transportation logistics, healthcare, construction trades, and IT business finance. And so what this means is when we have an individual who we talked about in chapter 3, those low-income adults or dislocated workers or youth, and we are helping them potentially get access to training or access to youth work experience or any of the other various programs, we really focus them in these high demand areas. And so to the point that if they want to receive training in some other sector, they actually have to get special permission to do so. Because we know that this is where the vast majority of jobs are in Northern Kentucky. And really getting them more into a career pathway versus just a job, we think it's really important to stick with our in-demand industries. So that's what that means by having the sector-based strategy, is that we really tie our funding to these sectors. During the pandemic, we did, as I mentioned earlier at the very beginning of the presentation, we did expand our training options to childcare as well, but specifically to a credential that would allow someone to receive a higher amount of pay. That is an industry where, unfortunately, traditionally, the pay is not very high, but we also know it is foundational to our entire economy. And so that is why the board elected to increase or to make available those training funds. The program design chapter also talks about continuous improvement, and this is something that is very much lived out by the KCC Career Center WIOA team members and the operator. They have a continuous improvement committee that reviews events after they've occurred, looks for opportunities to improve, and that is all outlined in the regional and local plan. Geographic reach. So we are very well aware that across our 8 counties, there are varying levels of opportunity related to jobs and varying levels of opportunity related to access to even broadband or access to IT, services. Not everyone in our community, not at all, has computer access. And so one of the things that we've been working on that is outlined in the plan is how we are working to make that access more available. A lot of that is in the, when we talked about locations, the partnerships with our libraries, especially in, both urban and rural areas. In Owen County and in Pendleton County, we didn't have any offices. It could be quite a drive for an individual needing services to go to maybe either Carrollton or go to Covington. And so we think having these partnerships with our libraries is a really great opportunity, both because it's a place that many community members already rely on. And so it's a natural fit, but also because they do have resources like technology as well. If someone had maybe a Zoom job interview or something of that sort. So those are just some of the ways outlined in the plan that we are working on expanding our geographic reach, both with physical locations, and then also we have expanded virtually as well, with many more of our basic career services that are offered to anyone being available through Facebook Live, such as interview workshops, resume writing workshops, etc. So we think it's important to have those virtual opportunities, but because of digital equity concerns, we do want to make sure that we maintain physical locations as well. The plan has questions about what they call priority of service. Those are individuals that we are called to serve. That we are called to serve as a priority. So veterans, for example, individuals who are already receiving public assistance also fall under our priority of service, as do individuals with skills gaps and individuals with disabilities. So we are always and have always been very focused on inclusion as we think about all those different individuals. All of our physical locations adhere very closely to American Disability Act specifications. But we also now, through this plan, have increased our intentionality around diversity, equity, and inclusion, being much more specific in how we are thinking about race and ethnicity, gender, and really geography. And so that is something that we know is a very complex and very long journey. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the strategic plan of the board does call for the creation of a committee and the creation of an action plan to keep the board focused and moving forward to continue improvement on that. Just a couple of final things under the program design chapter. We are responsible through the WIB is responsible, and then we use the subcontractor to carry out rapid response activities. Rapid response is a term for going into a company who has declared a layoff. If a company has a layoff of more than 50 individuals, they are required by law to put out a WARN, WARN notice. And so when those come out, our rapid response coordinator works with all the various resource providing organizations across our region. Many of them I mentioned earlier in terms of our community partners and MOU partners, to go to that company, work with them, to work with their employees about how might we get them, do they need new skills? Can they go straight to another employer who might be hiring? And so all of that is outlined. I actually put the page numbers here because it is, again, quite a lengthy explanation, but it is available if you'd like to learn more on page 44. The other thing, which is kind of at the heart of what I talked about earlier with the job seeker services, are our individual training accounts. So those are for adults and dislocated workers. If they're determined to be what we call WIOA eligible, then they can receive up to $3,500 for 2 years, so a total of $7,000 for training or education, again, in eligible sector categories. And so that process of how someone is determined eligible and how they receive those dollars are outlined beginning on page 47. So that is the end of chapter 4. Chapter 5 is all about compliance, performance, and administrative costs. And again, the local and regional plan really calls for a review, and our executive committee kind of took the lead on this. How this, so the local grant recipient would be the area development district on behalf of the judges, and then the board really implementing that work. But how are we responsible for distributing grant funds? What are our procurement processes? And then describe the members used to measure performance. So those are the things that are outlined in chapter 5. I just kind of outlined this pretty quickly. One of the questions on the plan is, are we pooling funds across, it says across regions, it really should say across areas. So for example, do we work with Bluegrass and combine funds with our colleagues in Lexington? And the answer is no, we don't do that at this time. I don't necessarily see that being something that we would pursue unless new opportunities or reasons would arise. The other question on the plan document is, do we negotiate performance as a region? And again, not at this time. We are able to negotiate our performance goals with the cabinet for education and workforce development because of the unique nature of each of our local areas. I don't see a reason why we would negotiate as a broader region at this time. Procurement, yes, we follow the Northern Kentucky Area Development District's model procurement process, and that is outlined in the plan. And data collection, oh yes, we collect lots of data, and we do that in really 3 different platforms. Our subcontractor, Brighton Center, has their own local Salesforce-based platform, and so they are collecting all the data locally. And then we also have all of it uploaded into the state system, Key Suite. Key Suite is for job seekers, and then KIBS, the Kentucky Integrated Business Engagement Service platform, is for employers. Both of those are Salesforce based as well, but they are unique and separate platforms. We did outline in the plan that we have had a number of challenges with Key Suite, as have our partner WIB regions over the last few years. It has really been a hindrance to our ability to collect performance data as a state. And so we did identify that we are hopeful that the state will continue to work out all of the bugs in that system moving forward. That's really the end of chapter 5. It's a little bit shorter. The remainder of the plan is in a chapter called Additional Elements, and then there are a number of attachments. Some of the additional elements are actually really already worked out in the body of the plan. So for the purposes of time, as well as just to not be totally redundant, I've only called out in this section those that are not covered elsewhere. So actually, though, the first bullet is actually covered elsewhere. So goals for specific populations. As I mentioned, we continue to be dedicated to working with individuals who fall under our priority of service, and to be inclusive about making sure that any job seeker, or even somebody who doesn't necessarily think of themselves as a job seeker, but might be interested in knowing about the services that are available. We're very focused on those individuals with barriers. One specific such population is that group with substance use disorder that's in recovery. Also, we are working through ways that we can better serve individuals coming out of incarceration. So kind of both types of recovery and reentry. and certainly looking for new ways to serve our young adults who, through the pandemic in particular, have really, unfortunately, become very separated in some cases from the education or workforce. And so there are a number of goals about, the desire and intention of working with each one of those groups outlined in the plan. The plan also asks about our alignment process, and I have summarized it here, but as the plan outlines, partnerships are key. We are very proud of our ability to be a part of Grow NKY because we do think that working with our workforce partners is not only, good, but is critical to the success of everyone involved. And so we are committed to being a strong partner in any way that we can. The plan also asks about work-based training models. And there's a couple of ways to answer that question. One of them that is outlined in the plan response is we, for the life of our program, have had youth work experience. Sorry, WEX stands for work experience. Youth work experience is really a hallmark of our youth program. It allows for paid internships for qualifying youth. And I have a note here, my career E3. Grow and its partners, and I can't possibly name them all right now, but that include Navigo and Learning Grove, and also the co-op, have all been a part of creating the My Career E3 platform. And at this present time, it's really focused on K-12. But I just wanted to acknowledge that this is the youth work experience that we're focused on is really for out of school youth. We know that eventually we should be able to hopefully track in the My Career E3 platform the out of school youth who we're also working with for work experience opportunities. But those are two work-based training models, or at least tracking. Ours is sort of a model, and My Career E3 is an entire platform to track what's happening across the K-12 space with regard to employer engagement. We also have work-based training funding for employers. So an employer would come to us and our arrangement would be with them, and then we would help them with their the talent side. So on the job training, that would allow for payment of up to 50% of an employee's wages while they were receiving on-the-job training as they were coming into a company. That's something that hasn't really been used very much in the last few years, but that's something that we have available to us. And we see with the changes in the economy through the pandemic that it's something that might be more interesting moving forward. And we also have incumbent worker training, which is actually a totally new policy that came about through this process and is moving through the Workforce Investment Board's committee structure. And we hope we'll have a vote in May to allow existing employees to receive training dollars through WIOA as well. So very much a number of work-based training models available through WIOA and through the WIB. The next question in the additional elements section is about the ETPL, or Eligible Training Provider List. That is a list that actually allows us to send one of our individuals in training to a specific training provider. So say we'll take Gateway Community and Technical College, for example. They have to enter each one of their courses or each one of their programs into this list and get certified that they're able to teach that particular program. So it's quite lengthy, as you might imagine. That is actually something that is maintained by the Cabinet for Education and Workforce Development. We do not maintain that list, though we certainly try to learn as much as we can about it. So I don't really know why the plan asked us for information about it, because it's not something that we work on, but we did indicate that in the plan. And then the final question in the additional elements was about the integrated English literacy and civics education program. That is something that we were very grateful to learn more about actually through this planning process. And we're happy to learn that Northern Kentucky was one of the few locations across the Commonwealth that has access to this program. It is funded through Skills U, which is Kentucky Adult Education, and is actually implemented by Gateway Community and Technical College. And so the details of that opportunity also are outlined in the plan. So I knew that it was going to be close, but somehow we have managed to cover the entire plan in less than an hour. Again, I'm pretty sure that I am not able to hear anyone, but if someone wants to try, if anyone has any comments, certainly if you have questions, it's possible that we might be able to answer. So if you would like to give us a try, we can either, you can put them in the chat or you can try to unmute and ask. But for everybody who did join, we appreciate it. And again, this will be available on our Facebook page. Thank you, Lisa, for your partnership as well. Thank you, Michelle. We appreciate the comments.